Hi, I'm John Woods, Director of Education in CSEE, and I'm here with my colleague Daniel Gobbett.
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm the education manager for the school, and I assist John with a number of bits around student experience and teaching quality and trying to get a standardized level of provision for all of our modules and all of our students.
And obviously our one objective is to get you your degree and to get you the best grade that we can under some rather difficult circumstances. Now, you will have heard through the grapevine, and you will be getting notifications very shortly that you will be taking the summer exams. The summer exams will be taken online, and those summer exams, we just want to go through what the procedure is behind them, because obviously you can't come into university because it's closed for obvious reasons. So what that means is you're going to do that remotely, which means you're going to do it in your place of residence. You may be at home, you may still be in university accommodation, but you're going to have to do that outside, which effectively means that the paper will be released to you, which means that that paper is open book. It means that you can, and I would imagine even the most honest of you would still resort to some form of reference. You're likely had to have a Google page open and so on. Now, we're fully aware of that, and we're okay with that actually, because the majority of our content, yes, okay, there's some bookwork in there, and you could run a Google search and you could look up a particular piece of bookwork, or you could have the notes in front of you. That's true. But the very action of having to look for that information is going to consume some of the time that you have for the exam. And the majority of the paper is open-ended anyway, so it's the application of knowledge, in which case having the notes in front of you or having access to Google doesn't really help you at all. It's the knowledge which you've accumulated over a period of time. So hopefully the more able and those of you who have been working extremely hard on your examinations, you're not going to feel disadvantaged by this, because you still have the advantage of being able to apply the material. Daniel, can you bring the document up? We've got a document we want to show, haven't we?
Yeah, so I've got a document here which is a guidance document for what will be the take-home exams hosted in FASER. So I don't.
So just let me take that one up, Daniel. So the university is going to release the examinations via FASER. Now, I'd be quite shocked if anyone didn't know what FASER was, but even if you don't know what FASER is, details will be sent to you as to how to use it. But you should all know how to log into FASER, because that's where you get your feedback for your reports, and that's where you upload your reports. When we do the examinations, according to the exam timetable that was sent out to you on Monday evening, if you haven't got that, you'll need to contact us on our FAQs and we can find out why. But you should by now have received an exam timetable. Now, that exam timetable documents the time at which those papers are going to be released. So sometime, maybe half an hour before at the exam or whatever, you're going to get in front of your computer and you're going to prepare yourself for the downloading of that exam from FASER. The majority of our exams are 2 hours. Well, exam, alternative assessment, there's various different pieces of terminology being used around the university, but effectively what we're using is the exam that you would ordinarily have sat had we not gone into shutdown. Now, the majority of our examinations are 2 hours long, and that's just something historic. That 2 hours, from experience, the majority of academics are writing papers that you can reasonably answer in about an hour and a half. So you've got a little bit of time there to go back over the paper and check it. Now, because of what's happening this year, because you've got to upload back onto FASER your solutions, we're allowing an extra hour to do that. Now, that's extremely generous, but that's taking into consideration several things. So if you have any technical problems with your machine, you have possibly some internet problems, you've done some hand drawings that maybe you want to photograph, a bit more about that shortly, but that's for all the inconvenience that will have been caused by not being able to be present to be able to do these things. So one of the things that students have raised is that, well, actually I'm not very fast at typing. Well, fine. So there's some penalisation which has happened because of that. That's all part of that additional hour inside there. Daniel, do you want to say anything on what I just said there?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. There's also the allocated additional time that may be allocated for your additional requirements. So on a case-by-case basis, students may have in normal times, they may have an additional 20 minutes, half an hour per exam.
And that will all be done automatically on Phaser, right?
And that will be done automatically. So that is incorporated into what we're calling your exam time.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have additional submission time proportional to that. I mean, that's not the case. But if you are entitled to an extra 45 minutes per exam, that will still be the case. Don't worry, this doesn't supersede that at all.
Okay, that's good. So you've got 2 hours to the exam and 1 hour to upload it. Well, with my student head on again, I could probably upload for something on Phaser in about 20 seconds, I would guess. So I can imagine a situation where students will use that last hour to, if not work on their exam paper, just to ensure that it's a slightly higher quality than it was after the 2 hours. Can we do anything about that? No, we can't. Are we going to remove that hour because of that? No, because that would be unfair because of some of the difficulties you may encounter because of the electronic means that we're using. So this particular year, there will be more time allocated, but that's due to the inconvenience that people will have experienced. So exam time, that's the original exam start time on the timetable that will have been sent out to you. Check that now, check everything's in place, check the right course codes are there, you're sitting all the exams you expect to. The timing of them, we receive a certain amount of feedback from students, and this is all, you can find things like this on our FAQ site. There's some of them are bunched. So you may have 2 exams on 2 consecutive days. Unfortunately, with the best will in the world, we don't have any control over that. That's central timetabling that decide that. It's run by an optimization algorithm to try and make it as fair as possible to everyone, but clearly people do perceive injustice on that. I suppose on the plus side, if you have 2 on 2 days running, then you're going to be a bit freer in the future, but you know, you can make whatever justification for it you want. But it's just where we are, and there's not really much that we can do about that. Daniel, you were talking a little bit about before the exam, prior to us recording this. Do you want to carry on with that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So before the exam, I think because you've got a certain level of freedom, which you wouldn't have in a invigilated in-person exam, I think we should all try and encourage students to make the most of that freedom. Now, that means that you should be able to prepare mentally, but also physically. So the things that you should prepare before the exam, making sure you've got a certain level of privacy and environment to concentrate in is key. I mean, you'd have that with an invigilated in-person exam, hopefully. It may not be the most conducive atmosphere. I find that if there's an invigilator sort of keeping an eye on me, reading a book or something, I find that quite, I prefer to be on my own with it. You know, I wouldn't like the pressure of someone sort of looking over my shoulder. So it may actually be more conducive for you to be able to be in a place, maybe the same place that you studied. So if you study at a desk, maybe taking it at that desk will help your the situational memory for your revision materials. Let other people in your household know that you may be busy for, you know, a number of hours, up to 3 hours potentially, plus any additional time, so that if at all possible, they shouldn't disturb you and potentially break your concentration or trail of thought with a point that you're trying to make. Having something to drink with you, I've made that quite generic. I know, John, some people don't get on with caffeine as much as others, but I'm unfortunately I'm one of those people who does very much get on with caffeine.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you know, have whatever you whatever is you think will help you make you concentrate, and that you're sitting and using your equipment comfortably, so that you're able to use your computer or your laptop to sit the exam. There are also calculators. Now, I don't know if you want to say a little bit, John, around, we're not policing exactly which calculator.
Yeah, I mean, we've got it on the rubrics, which is just the cover of the examination paper that explains to you. We've got a separate video over that, by the way. But the cover of the examination paper explains to you what's going to take place inside the examination. And on that cover, it will say permitted type of calculator. Well, obviously, we're not in your house or your flat, so you could have a hunky-dory, super-duper calculator in there that knew all the answers to the universe, but we couldn't do anything about that. I'd like a calculator like that if you have one. But of course, you have the super-duper calculator that knows all the answers to the universe. It's called your computer, and its internet connection. So we're in the open book situation anyway. So if you're, well, I guess really you're free to use whatever calculator you wish. So there's a certain amount of disregard for a Casio CA450 or whatever it says on the rubric there, because we know that you're working on PCs anyway.
Mm. And if students have that brand of calculator anyway, you know, for taking previous exams, it's likely to be the one lying around, and it's probably going to be the one they were taught with in the sessions. So there is a certain level of continuity by using something that's established like that.
There's very few questions we ask where we actually ask you to calculate numbers. It's generally, you know, produce a formula to do the following, but actually working out numbers, don't really care. It's just approximating.
Absolutely. We've got also as well here, have a pen, pencil and paper, or pen or pencil and some paper, in case you want to make notes for your own thought process, or if you want to submit any of your notes or hand-drawn or handwritten answers to any of the questions, you're free to do that as well.
Can I just pick up on that, Daniel, please? So you're sat at home, by definition, you will be sat in front of the computer, otherwise you won't be able to do your exam. Once you've downloaded that material onto your desktop, you've got one of really two main choices. If you're using a tablet, you're in a position to annotate and mark up the exam paper anyway. Well, that would be fine if you did that. Another alternative, if you're using a desktop computer, is to just open a Word document and inside that Word document type your answers. Some people don't like typing. I prefer to scribble on bits of paper than I do sit there tapping on a keyboard. So if I was sitting the exam, I would take the pen and paper option. So I'd make sure that I had, you know, a dozen sheets of paper in front of me, a pen, paper, a couple of spare pens, a couple of spare pencils, rubber definitely, and then I'd scribble away fervently for a couple of hours. Once I'd done that, I would then, because I've got to be able to upload that information, you could use a scanner, but they're very old school now. I don't know of anyone that doesn't have a mobile phone with a camera on it, or you can use a camera. That's you could do it either way. I mean, I've got several sat on my desk here now, strangely enough. So you can photograph your written jottings and upload those onto Phaser as well. So the choice of delivery is down to the individual. Now, it can be mixed. So you can be a fast typer, so you're perfectly happy to use a Word document, but then you come up against a thing that says write an equation to do blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, you can do equations in Word, but that's slow and tedious. It's much quicker just to scribble it using a pencil, or it says draw a diagram to design the following network or something. Well, that's going to take ages in Word because you've got to draw boxes and all this kind of stuff, and the drawing package isn't very good. So that's a sort of example where you'd rush off to your piece of paper, scribble your drawing or your equation down on there, and then photograph and then upload that later. To a certain extent, we haven't covered everything because there will be people that do things really creatively. You know, that we may have documents from iPads and so on where the drawings and the typing is integrated. There's lots and lots of different ways that this could take place.
Yeah,
The choice is largely up to you. I mean, even if someone used a dictation machine, we would be unaware. Well, you probably know because you get funny spelling mistakes when you use those. But yes, feel free to use a mixture of tools to be able to answer your questions. But remember, we can only mark that which is uploaded. So you
yeah,
must make sure that you've uploaded all of the answer documents that you've done prior to that 3 hours. Now, remember, you've got 1 hour to make that upload. That's a long time, but I do appreciate that some of you may smuggle some of that 1 hour to actually answer some of the questions. We can't prevent that, but obviously the excuse, it took me a long time to upload it, doesn't really hold much water given that we've given you an hour to do it.
yeah. No, absolutely. One of my so I know that some of our students, and I know this for a fact 'cause I've spoken to a number of them about it, may well be as neurotic as I am, and I'm very much a have to have things in a certain order and a certain format for it to be, pass the Daniel Gobbett test of formatting and layout that I set myself. So the way I would probably try to achieve a good submission with using that submission time as much as possible is I would probably take a picture of the image, email it to myself, and then maybe try and, if I've got a docx file that I'm using as my answer sheet, I would embed that picture in the relevant section and play around with the formatting a little bit, maybe put a border on it because I'm that way inclined. And I know a lot of our students are, they like things in a certain way, and that's absolutely fine. So if you do want to embed and sort of coagulate together, if you don't want to have a million different pictures uploaded onto Phaser, have a go at embedding them into a document. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you've got a backup. And it's a good way of using that extra hour that we've given as well. So
okay, yeah, that's good advice, Daniel. I would counter that though, that you're not going to be assessed on presentation. So if we
no.
end up with something that looks like a spider crawled all over it, as long as we can read it, that still gets the full marks. Let's be very clear about this. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a presentation, it's an exam. But if you want to try and include things in places that you think they're relevant. Also going back to something we mentioned in another video, it doesn't necessarily have to be question 1, question 2, question 3. If it's in a different order, or if it's, the order in which you complete it, again, it's not a case of a post or a presentation or
the
something like
marker
that.
will decipher it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's their job. That's their role in the marking process.
Yeah.
So the only other thing that I'd say to get prepared is to make sure you got the right tabs open. What do I mean by that? Not the embarrassing tabs that I had open before, but if you have tabs which are the CSEE technical team Zoom room, if you have the submission point for your exam open, and if you have the student FAQ forum for your relevant your relevant exam, have that open in case you need to ask a question to the academic about, potential, if there's a wording which is a bit ambiguous, or if you're not sure. It's not a general, can you explain it better to me sort of thing. It's not live academic support. It's if you think there's been a mistake, or if you think there's a miscalculation or a misrepresentation in one of the questions, it's your point to clarify early on in the exam, before you get to that point.
Yeah. So there's two main things which could occur inside the examination. One is technical failure. So you go onto Phaser and Phaser's got a little spinning circle on it, that frustrating spinning circle, and you can't download. That's where you'll then contact the technical team from the links that we'll provide for you. And hopefully that will be resolved very quickly. The other thing that can occur is what Daniel was just discussing there, where you believe there to be something wrong in the paper. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but you can then go to the Zoom room and the FAQs that are being held by the academic in real time when the exam is running, and they will give you instant feedback. So that's even better. There's a lot of things actually inside this that are better than a normal exam environment. But instant access to the exam paper writer is certainly one advantage that you wouldn't have inside a normal invigilated exam. It would take you 10-15 minutes to acquire that information, whereas potentially here you can do it within seconds.
No, absolutely. Just a point as well around during the actual exam itself. Now, obviously, you'll be wanting to keep a clear head. You'll be wanting to work iteratively through the questions and your working knowledge. But just to say on a technical front, the exam will begin once the exam paper is released on Phaser. So from that point, which is specified in your exam timetable, you should work your way through the questions and answer them in your answer sheet that we'll provide. If you are running a different platform, or if you're running a different operating system, then the equivalent of a docx or a doc file, as long as it's a Word file or a word processing format that is readable and accessible by our academic staff, then that should be fine. And given your coursework submissions, you will know what those are as well. So whatever your equivalent word processing file format is. Once you've done it, if you save your answer document, use your candidate number, which will be in your exam timetable. You can find your candidate number there, and then save it alongside the module code of the exam in the title of the file name. So upload that along with anything else onto your section of Phaser that you've already got open. And hopefully that won't take you the full hour. As John says, it's a matter of sort of 20, 30 seconds. But if you do have any issues around it, you've got that buffer time to complete that.
Okay, enough said, I think, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I think job done. Thanks for sticking with us, guys, and we'll see you again soon.